Fine, it is the 15th of December and you're tuning on to your favorite morning show. And as we promised you, we do have two very special guests in the studios. Well, speaking of advances in technology, the automotive industry is witnessing a drastic change when it comes to an incredibly fast change in its developments in the fundamental technology with its products, as we all know. Because up to the recent times, we've seen the only choice of propulsion was either the petrol or the diesel engine, but now there's a huge range of electrical and the hybrid propulsion systems that we can actually choose from the chassis control point of view to the electronic stability. Was recently the most sophisticated control of the vehicle stability when it comes to the electric vehicles and its design that really came into being. So we do have two great personalities to speak to us about the energy management of the hybrid vehicles and electrical vehicles in Sri Lanka, and we do have Dr. Stefano Longo from the lecturer of Art and Cranford University of the UK, Advanced Vehicle Engineering Centre he is from, and also we have Dr. Lanka Samaranayaka, the senior lecturer of the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering of the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Peradeniya. A very good morning to you, Doctor.
Morning.
So speaking of the electrical vehicles and it coming into being in the global perspective, first of all, we'd like to ask from Dr. Stefano, tell us how this technology really came into being in the globe.
Okay, the interesting story is actually the first car was electric. The first time car was built was entirely electric. The problem is that it's very difficult to store energy in a battery. You need a very big and heavy battery to store enough energy to have a sufficient range. That's why petrol vehicles, diesel vehicles are much more successful. Now, because of all the problems with emissions and health, because of the bad emissions and global warming, we're slowly shifting towards a greener way of transportation. And the electric vehicle, of course, is the obvious option.
Right, that is very true. And in fact, when we speak of the green economy and green technology, that is very important, as you said. But how has, if I would ask you, how has the changeover come from the diesel vehicles or the petrol vehicles to that of electrical vehicles?
So what has happened is the realization that normally in a car you need a really large engine to overcome those accelerations. But most of the time when you're driving on a city or even when you're driving on a motorway, you don't need excess of power. So engineers are thinking we can make the engine smaller and then integrate in the car an electric motor that is only used for driving a very slow speed or giving that additional power when you need to overtake, for example. So that was the beginning of the hybrid vehicles, which combine the traditional internal combustion engines with any other sort of propulsion. Normally it's an electric motor, but it could be a supercapacitor, for example, the powering again an electric motor. It could be many other systems have been proposed, including flywheels and some kind of pressure storage system. So there are lots of technology out there, and it's still not quite sure which one is going to win.
All right, to move to Dr. Lelanta, so when talking about the local context, hybrid vehicles and electronic vehicles are now being, there's a popularity in Sri Lanka, there's a lot of hybrid and electric vehicles used in Sri Lanka. What is your idea about it?
Well, as Dr. Stefano mentioned, now the international influence on the electric vehicles has come to us as well. That's why you could see a lot of hybrid vehicles and then also a little bit of electric vehicles as well. Now this enthusiasm to move from internal combustion, that is diesel or petrol engines, to fully electric has been there for so many years. And as he correctly mentioned, the problem has been the energy storage, the battery. So battery industry has been kept on improving. As a result, we could integrate the electric motor in place of, just to take the burden of the internal combustion engine, and it kept on coming over and over and ended up with fully electric. So got rid of the internal combustion engine. and that's how the electric vehicles came into the picture. And the good thing about it is that you don't get the tailpipe, that means there's no emission, and you may have seen that it's a zero emission, but I need to comment a little bit on that because it becomes zero emission only if you have a sustainable means of getting the energy down to the vehicle. Yeah. For example, if you burn some crude oil in somewhere in the power system to generate that power and getting to the electric vehicle, that's not, I don't think it is environmentally sustainable. So to get the real essence of environmental sustainability, you have to integrate a renewable source such as a solar cell, solar panel or something, some green means of energy into this cycle. Then you will see the real potential of these electric vehicles. So when we turn into the local context, actually one thing is, of course, you could see imported electric vehicles on the road, and in addition, at the various corners of the country, different people are working on these electric vehicles. For example, if you look here in Colombo itself, there's this trace expert city who are working on an electric supercar with very high performance. And if you go to the suburbs, you could see some individuals work in isolation. They are trying to do something, convert their own IC engine driven whatever the vehicle that they have into an electric vehicle. So there are lots of efforts taken at individual level in separation, in a kind of disintegrated manner, happening as individuals. Also at the universities and other research organizations, people keep trying doing this thing because they see the potential of these electric vehicles in the future.
So adding to it, Dr. Lanka, if I may ask you, now during the recent times we saw a boost of hybrid vehicles and electrical vehicles in Sri Lanka. So how do you think that we can really sustain this in Sri Lanka, and how important do you think would it be for Sri Lanka, especially when we speak of environmental sustainability and we are looking at a green economy and a green country after all? So your thoughts on this?
Actually, when it comes to the hybrid electric vehicles, the problem is a little less, I would say, because to take care of the passengers, you have the IC engine just in case if you run out of energy on board. But if it is the electric vehicle, fully electric vehicles, then I think the authorities or whoever the caretakers must at the same time they get the vehicles into the country, they should be looking into the infrastructure development, like charging stations and things like that. So, and when it comes to the charging stations also, as I mentioned to you earlier, how you are going to provide this charge to the battery, whether you are going to connect it to the grid and get it there. You know that our grid is partly coal, partly hydro and partly diesel. So all sorts of energy, all sorts of sources are there. So, but if we can add a substantial amount of solar or some similar renewable source which is green, then I think you will reach the goal of environmental sustainability in our country. And it will contribute a lot to reduce the emissions. I mean, emission can happen at the tailpipe of the vehicle or in the power station. So you have to stop both.
And yes, we need a lot of technical capacity, a lot of technicians when it comes to dealing with the new technology. So in Sri Lanka, do we have enough technicians with the technical capacity to deal with electronic and hybrid vehicles?
Well, compared to if you take the situation about 15-20 years ago, every garage could repair the vehicles that were on the road. But today, the situation has changed. If your hybrid vehicle or electric vehicle get into a problem, then you need to take it back to the agents or the authorized people. I mean, that number is very less. That itself answers your question. So we don't have that many qualified and technically skilled people. So that's one aspect that people have. I mean, the authorities have to look after.
And moving on to Dr. Stefano, I would like to ask you, speaking of energy management for hybrid vehicles, I think that is an important aspect to be highlighted. Let's talk a little bit about this. Area.
Yeah, thanks for the question. That's actually my specialty. Energy management basically means how we're going to decide whether the power to power the vehicle is going to come from the engine or from the battery or from other energy sources within the powertrain of the car. That's a very difficult decision to make because ideally you want to use the battery all the time because that's the green way of moving the vehicle, but then you want to make sure you're going to reach your destination. So if the vehicles know exactly the way it's going to be driven and exactly for how long it's going to be driven, then the problem becomes easier because you can plan how you want to do it. For example, I'm going to use the battery now, then I'm going to use the engine a little bit because I need a little bit more power, and then when I arrive home, for example, the battery is completely depleted, but it's no problem because I'm going to recharge it.
So adding to it, would like to ask you now, when it comes to a plug-in hybrid vehicle, how do you see the difference?
Well, the good thing about the plug-in hybrid vehicle is that you can recharge the battery at home. So when you arrive home, you plug the vehicles and you get full battery again. The problem with that, and I think Lanka touched on it, is that if you're not going home, for example, if you're traveling, you need infrastructure to allow it to do that. So you need charging points, enough charging points along the way, so you can guarantee that you always have enough charge in the battery to complete your journey.
And also, let's talk about the hybrid vehicles and electronic vehicles, the chassis of the vehicle. So how is the modeling and the control and optimization of these the vehicles of hybrids and the electronic vehicles?
Okay, so that's another interesting things that happen about hybrid and electric vehicles. So now that we can power the wheels with motors, motors tend to be more responsive than an engine. So for example, if you have two motors on the back wheel, which is a common configuration, you can control the torque on each wheel independently. So not only you have an electric vehicle that is green, you also have a vehicle that's much more stable and much more controllable. And some of the work we do is to design control algorithms for vehicle stability, and we do that by first of all modeling the vehicles in computer simulation, which is cheaper than actually building one and testing it, and then when we are satisfied that the controller is doing pretty much the right thing, then we test down the real vehicle.
So when we speak of companies like Tesla, we've seen that they have brought this functionality to an extent where it has become autopilot and all of that.
Right.
So how do you see these advances in technology, and what more can we really expect when it comes to electric vehicles in the future?
So I think Tesla is doing the right thing. I think that's the future. That's exactly what's going to happen. Vehicles will be fully electric, and they will be more and more autonomous. I know the concept of autonomy is a little bit scary for some people. In fact, Tesla itself had an accident last May where the driver was killed on an autopilot. Tesla, of course, says that the pilot should always be in control. The guy in the car, of course, wasn't. But this technology is becoming better and better. And as soon as we are confident that the autopilot is able to sense the external world in the right way and is able to control the vehicle in a safe way, then people really think that one day there will be zero accidents, not death on the road, because that wouldn't be possible. Now, this might be easy, for example, in America, where they have big roads and lots of space. I was on a taxi in Sri Lanka yesterday, and things here are a bit more challenging, but it's still possible.
No, but when I would also like to add something to it and ask you now, when the Tesla accident happened, there was a big issue happening across the globe with regards to whether this is really going to be secure or not, and people really have this problem of autopilot. Is it going to be a good turnover or not? So what is your idea behind this? Where would the electrical vehicles take the next step? Will it be into a completely or fully autonomous situation, or probably a hybrid version of both?
Yeah, this is the $1 million question. No one has got an answer for it yet. What people think is that if autonomous vehicle is going to reduce the number of accidents even by 1%, that's 1% better, so that's a good thing. Also, in terms of development, there are various stages of autonomy that people talk about, and one of the stages that the vehicle, for example, like Tesla, is got a level of autonomy that where the vehicle can do something by itself, but the driver always needs to be alert just in case the vehicle say, I'm confused about the situation, please take control back. That's actually a problem, because as soon as you stop driving, as humans, we get distracted with something else. We'll start playing with the mobile phone, we'll read a book, we'll fall asleep. So some people actually think that we should wait until the vehicle are good enough that we don't need a human anymore. So we should jump straight from human driving completely to autonomous driving, rather than having this gap in between where the vehicle can do a bit, but then needs to give control back to the human. That actually could be less safe than full autonomy.
And Dr. Lelantha, moving to you. So when it comes to Sri Lanka, as you mentioned before, we don't see much of a production happening when it comes to electric and hybrid vehicles, especially as you mentioned. There are certain developments happening here and there in the suburbs, and also as about this electronic car. So what are your thoughts about how can we start developing here in Sri Lanka our own electronic and hybrid vehicles?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. Why we don't have products is we may not have done enough research. If we have research only, we can go for development. So I think research in electric vehicles area is still at the infancy level in our country as a whole. So we need to embark on this topic, because as Dr. Longo mentioned a while ago, it's going to be the key means of transportation in the future. So we have to be ready with that. So I think we need to put more focus on this particular important topic, because it doesn't mean that we need to start from the scratch. When you take the electric vehicle, you have the electric motor, you have the battery, you have the control systems, you have the vehicle dynamics, and these are the main items of the vehicle. Now, these parts have already been studied in isolation. Motors have been studied for many years, and so has the control systems. And also battery technology, as far as I know in Sri Lanka, the research area is not that mature. But vehicle chassis, vehicle dynamics, all the mechanical engineering departments have been doing this. So it is a matter of putting things in order. So if you integrate the things, I think we are at some distance, but we don't see that distance because we have not integrated. So if you integrate things and do a bit of research, I think we are there. Actually, why Dr. Longo is with us in Sri Lanka is also a part of such a similar effort that we are doing between the department where I come from and his department in Cranfield. So we do some collaborative research where we can exchange our capabilities between the countries, between the institutions, and go forward in this electric vehicle aspects.
And moving on to Dr. Longo, would like to ask you another important aspect when we speak of hybrid and electrical vehicle powertrains, the modeling, control and optimization. If you would like to elaborate the global aspect of it and how you would like to share that experience with the Sri Lankans here.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to talk about this afternoon. Let's start from the optimization point of view. So there used to be days, like you mentioned earlier, where the engine was either petrol or diesel and there wasn't much to optimize there. These days in a car you have engines, you have motors, you have batteries, maybe you have other type of energy storages. Now the first question is, what kind of topology should you have? You might have heard of series hybrid, parallel hybrid, and all sorts of different combinations. So that's the first question. The second question is how big this component should be. Should I have a big battery and a small engine, or a big engine and a small battery? And that of course depends on how the vehicle is driven. So optimization means finding a solution to this problem. In order to find a solution, I didn't say anything about control. Control is another big issue. Now, how we're going to decide when and how the power is going to come among different components. So that's the control aspect. In order to optimize the vehicle and to design the control algorithms, you need a model of the vehicle. So you need to somehow simulate the vehicle in a computer so you can try different solutions. Because if you try to have all this different solution for real, that would be really time consuming and really expensive. So this is the topic of the seminar this afternoon.
Right, and adding to it, we'd like to ask from Dr. Lanka to explain us about the seminar which is going to take place here in Colombo, and especially Dr. Longo is here in Sri Lanka for a worthy cause to enlighten the industry experts of Sri Lanka with regards to the electrical and hybrid vehicle productions and all of that. So let's remind our viewers as to how they can really get in touch with this event.
Yes, actually, as one of the questions that you were asking, whether we have enough expertise in the country, my answer has been no. So this seminar has been a small effort to bring the already established knowledge in electric vehicles to our country. So this particular seminar has been organized particularly for engineers, vehicle designers, and most of all the enthusiasts. It's them who bring new ideas into the platform. So it's been catered mainly for these categories, but all the other interested parties are most welcome. And it will take place in Sri Lanka Foundation at 3 o'clock today. Starting at 3 o'clock, it will run for about 3 hours.
And also, if you would elaborate on the different areas that would be spoken and covered in this particular seminar, sir?
Basically, it's electric vehicles, vehicle modeling, control, optimization, and stability also, and with some simulations which will be shown in the seminar. So, a clear idea will be given how we should be scientifically approach this problem of electric vehicles design and optimization.
And also would like to ask you about the 2016 symposium that took place. Would like to elaborate on it, Dr. Lila?
Yeah, as you could see now, this particular research and project symposium has been an annual event in the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, where we try to showcase the undergraduate and postgraduate research projects which are happening in the department. This year we had it in September in Waters Edge Hotel, and you could see in the pictures that there were some key figures in the country. And for the next year, what we try to do is we have started already at the preparation. The main thing is the new research projects. So this year we will have a substantial number of projects related to electric vehicles and their accessories and stuff like that. So as part of the research collaboration that we have at the faculty level, sub-projects of them will go as undergraduate projects. So they will be showcased in the symposium. Most likely it will be in the end of August or beginning of September next year, that's 2017.
Right, so we encourage all the university students to certainly take part in this conference, in this symposium as well. And also today at 3 p.m. in the evening, you can witness a lot of information with regards to the electrical vehicle development, and this will be taking place today at 3 p.m. at the Sri Lanka Foundation Institute at Independence Square, Colombo 7, and all are welcome. And thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Lilanda Samranayaka and Dr. Stefano Longo, for coming in for Rise and Shine today. And it's indeed a great privilege and a pleasure to have you with us. So we would see you same time, same place tomorrow as well. Till then, bye-bye from all of us.